Hi everyone! So this is probably going to be an incredibly awkward first video, but I think everyone's first video is also probably incredibly awkward, so I think we just have to do it, get it over with, and I am kind of nervous, so if I talk too fast, I'm sorry, you might have to slow the video down. So my name is Hazel and I'm a PhD student and I'm also an author, and this channel is, I think, at the minute going to be about helping you with your PhD as well as writing tips since I am an author, and maybe some other things that I'm interested in. I don't know yet. I guess we'll see as we go along. So this video, as you can probably tell by the title, is going to be about applying for your PhD. So quick disclaimer, I am from England. I go to university in England, that's where my PhD is. This may not be the same process if you live in another country, and even if you live in England or are going to university in England, it still may not be the same for a PhD. So, but it might be similar, so it might be helpful, and there could be some tips to help you. So the first thing you need to do is work out what university you want to go to. So it will be helpful at this stage if you have an idea of what you want to study. So obviously that will be influenced by what you did your degree in, what you did your masters in. It helps you to know. And you generally aren't allowed to study something you don't already have a qualification in. So that's the first thing, you need to know where to go. And generally, if you want to do a PhD in a subject that's quite general, or not general, I guess common, something maybe like business or maths, you could probably do it at most universities in the UK. Whereas if you want to do something really specific, maybe not. So I know when I was applying to do my degree, which was like 5 years ago now, I had a friend who wanted to study archaeology, and there was only one university at the time in the UK that offered archaeology. Whereas I wanted to do creative writing, and if I got in, I could pretty much do it anywhere. Whereas if she wanted to do archaeology, she had to go to that university. So you need to take that into mind. It really depends what you want to do, because if you get into that university to do your research, they need to be able to assign you at least 2 supervisors is usually the case, and the supervisors, they need to have some knowledge of your field, and they can't assign a supervisor who knows nothing about your subject. You also need to take into consideration the facilities they have at the university, and this is more for anyone who wants to do something science-based and needs lab equipment. The university may not have the equipment you need to carry out a certain experiment, and it may be better to study at a different university for that reason alone. Not all universities will be willing to let you study your PhD at one university but then go to the other university and use their lab equipment. That other university may not want you, but if you know already that the 2 universities have like a partnership, they may be willing to in that case, but I'd always double check. You also need to take into consideration commuting to the university. So not everybody, I would say the majority of people who do PhDs, from what I've seen at my uni, most of them are not 22, 23 like I am and do their PhD straight after their degree and masters. They usually get a job and wait at least about 5 years, if not a lot longer, before they decide to do a PhD. And by this point you may have got married, you may have children, you may have a house. So that generally does narrow down the universities you can go to. However, that being said, for a PhD, again depending what you decide to research, you don't need to be at the university all the time attending classes. You may need to come in to use lab equipment if you're doing something in a lab. You may need to come in for supervision meetings, unless your supervisor is fine with doing it over the phone. You may need to come in for training events. I have to go into uni for training events, and you may also have to go into university for auditing classes. So I have to audit some classes on a different course, so that means I will go into a degree level program, sit in the class, learn from the class. I don't have to do the assignments, but I will go in for that class. And I live pretty near my university, so it's really useful. So you need to take that into consideration when picking the uni. The second thing is that you then, once you've decided what uni you want to do, you need to contact the university. And it was actually a part of my application form for the PhD. It was a requirement that I had to have contacted the uni. Now, I was already at the university I wanted to do my PhD at. I was already doing my master's there and I worked there as well, so it was really easy for me to contact the uni. They have like a research degree email address that you could email to ask about PhDs. And I also asked my tutor at the time to put me in contact with someone who could potentially help me flesh out my idea before I applied. But it's sometimes a requirement, so bear that in mind. So if, like me, you're coming straight off a master's and you want to stay at the same university, it's really easy to get someone to talk to someone to find out more information since you're already at the university. But if you've been out of education for a while, or you have just come out of your master's but you want to go to a different university, it might be a bit harder, but there should still be help available. Unless, of course, on the application form it says you don't need to contact the uni, then you're fine. But I think it's best anyway, especially if you have been out of education, to contact the uni if you've never been to that uni before. I think it's probably in your better interests. So I emailed my tutor for help. He couldn't really help me. He didn't know anyone in the field I wanted to study. So I then emailed this research degree email address. They gave me the email address and contact numbers of people who I could contact for a meeting, whether that was in person, over the phone, over FaceTime, whatever we were both comfortable with and what was easier. Because if you do live far away, if you already have a full-time job, you have children, calling or FaceTime may be more appropriate for you, and it may also be easier for them to set aside time for a phone call rather than a face-to-face meeting. But since I live so near, I go in for face-to-face meetings usually. So this person, they may become your supervisor, they may not become your supervisor. It really depends. They, at this stage, are there primarily to help you flesh out your idea, and they're also there to help you write your proposal. They could be a potential supervisor, but they may not end up being your supervisor. So don't get too attached to them. I mean, I met one lady and she wasn't very helpful. So I emailed again and they gave me the email address of a different tutor at the university. I met her, she was super helpful. And she actually now is my director of studies, my head supervisor, and one of her colleagues who, she was off on a leave at the time, but she was helpful as well, and she's now actually my second, and we communicated over email. She's back in uni now, but at the time she wasn't. So they may not become your supervisor, but at this stage they're just there to help you write the proposal. Okay, so you probably won't go and meet them straight away. You're going to want to email them. This is step 3. So you email this tutor at the university. So give them your idea. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be the final idea. You don't have to have your research question, your methodology and your aims and your outcomes all fleshed out. It's just a general idea of study and maybe what you want to achieve with your PhD. And if they think it's viable, and they can see you're passionate about it, if you give them a reason why you want to study this, they will then ask you for a meeting or a phone call, whatever works for you. So at this meeting, you will tell them more about your idea and you will flesh it out with them. And the most important thing to remember, well, 2 most important things, is that firstly, you must be able to sustain this into a PhD. So PhD a PhD thesis is usually 80,000 words long. So your research findings, your literature review, it needs to be able to sustain around that benchmark of words. And also, second of all, did I say 2 things? There's more than 2 things. Second of all, A PhD, if you're doing it full-time, is 3 to 4 years, and part-time can be 7 years. So it has to be something you're interested in. You don't want to be researching something for 3 years if you hate it. You want it to be something you're interested in and you're passionate about. And then finally, the third thing, the most important thing I would say, is that it has to be original. You are not allowed to research something that has been done before. So after the meeting, unless they know there and then this has been done before, they will tell you to go away and to research it, to see if it's been done before. It doesn't necessarily have to have been done in an academic capacity before. If it's been done before by someone on Reddit, that classed as being researched before, so it has to be completely original. If you would like, let me know in the comments. I will do like a video on originality in your research, but if there's something you're really passionate about, you want to do, but it has been done before, try and look at it from a different angle. How can you approach this in a different way that makes it original enough? So the originality is something really important. So stage 5, so the meeting was stage 4, sorry I forget the numbers. So stage 5 is writing the proposal. So again, let me know if you want me to go more in depth about how to write the proposal. But the proposal for me, I think, from what I remember, so you have your research question, then you have your aims, which is like 3 or 4, then at the end you have your potential outcomes, and like try and get them to mirror the aims. Like, so the aims is before you start the research, the outcome is after you've done. They should like mirror them. So if you achieve the first aim, the potential outcome for the first one should reflect that first aim. They gotta like mirror each other, yeah? Put like a purpose, a why this is so after the aims, you would then put the purpose, you know, why is this important? Why does it need to be done? It's a bit like a mini literature review. And then like the potential methodology, what do you want to research? So you don't need to go in depth and say, I'm gonna have 300 participants from the Greater Manchester area, am I gonna do semi-structured interviews? You don't need to go that far in depth. Just say you would like to maybe interview people from the general northwest area about cyberbullying. Obviously pertinent to your research. So, and then you will send your drafts of your proposal to the staff, or in my case the staff members, the more than one, to look over it. And they will more than likely send it you back and say change this, change this, change this, and send it back and forth. They will tell you when you're ready to submit. Do not submit before they tell you to, okay? It may seem like a bit of a pain, and I feel like I spent ages doing mine, but it pays off in the end, and it also helps if you get on the PhD with the first step in your PhD. So spend time on your proposal, make it good, listen to what the tutors have to say. You know, to be a PhD supervisor, you have to have a PhD. That's one of the requirements. So they've done it themselves before, they know what they're talking about. So don't submit it until they've told you you can. So this is when you get to the application form. So depending on the university, it should be fairly straightforward. So upload your proposal, you know, put in all your qualifications, put in references. It will probably say they have to be academic, and they should be academic, and they should be from your last institution, whoever your tutors were there. Obviously, if you're coming into a PhD after a considerable amount of time off from education, your previous tutors may have moved universities, may have retired, and in that case, I don't know what to suggest, I'm sorry. I'm sure someone else can let you know. If that has been the case with someone who's watching this, can you please let everyone know in the comments what you do in that situation, because I'm not sure what you would do in that situation. I really don't know, I'm sorry. And the application form may also ask for a personal statement. Now on my application form, it said I didn't have to do it, but I did do it and I'm glad I did. Just to let them know, just because it really helped me to tell the university, even though I was already there, what kind of student I was, my background to the PhD. So my PhD covers 3 main fields. So it covers writing, largely writing science fiction, mental health in writing, and Asia. Now I have a degree and a master's in creative writing, so I've got the writing bit covered. I have mental health issues, got that covered, and my novel is a science fiction novel, so I've got that covered. However, apart from interest, like a pretty deep interest, I don't have any qualification in like Asia Pacific studies or anything like that. So I use my personal statement to try and prove to them how hardworking I was, like I said. So I wrote my book when I was 19, I got it published when I was 23, I did another master's at the same time, I already work at the university, I do voluntary work and stuff like that. It just helps to showcase your character and try and convince the university why you are like a good candidate for the PhD. And it's also a good place to mention which tutors at the university you have been in contact with regards to the PhD. Like if you were like me and you were already a student there when you were applying, don't just say you've been in contact with your normal tutors. Obviously pertinent to the ones who helped you write your proposal. And then you should be good to submit, but do not submit your proposal until this member of staff helping you has told you you can. Don't do it. They know what they're talking about. Okay? So I think that was everything, apart from like the originality aspect and writing the proposal. But if you would like me to do a video on them, I think I definitely will for the proposal. Let me know if you want one on originality. I don't think there's a whole lot I could say, but let me know if you want me to. So I think that's everything. Bye!